Some places are better left forgotten. Some stories are buried deep, too terrifying to tell. But tonight, you're about to hear one. The story of Whistler's Mansion. It was the 1920s when a wealthy industrialist, Vincent Whistler, built a grand mansion on the outskirts of town. Its beauty was unrivaled, its architecture magnificent. The finest materials were used in its construction. People said it was a dream come true, a house fit for royalty. But dreams, as we know, often come with nightmares. You see, Vincent Whistler wasn't just obsessed with wealth. He was obsessed with something darker. In secret, he had studied the occult, drawing upon ancient rituals and forbidden practices. He believed that wealth and power could only be fully realized by controlling forces beyond the mortal realm, forces that existed just beyond the veil of our reality. But, as with all dangerous pursuits, he didn't fully understand the consequences of what he was tampering with. The mansion, as magnificent as it was, quickly gained a sinister reputation. Those who worked there, laborers and servants alike, began to report strange occurrences. The house was never quite still. Whispers seemed to echo through the hallways, objects moved without explanation, and shadows lingered in the corners of rooms, growing larger when no one was around. One by one, the staff vanished. Some left in fear, some simply disappeared without a trace. Whistler's own family began to grow distant too. His wife, once a charming socialite, became withdrawn, her eyes hollow and haunted, as though she were seeing something no one else could see. His children, once full of life, fell silent, their smiles turning to frowns. They stopped playing, stopped speaking. Soon, Vincent Whistler found himself alone in that mansion, the grand house echoing only his own footsteps. Rumor has it that one night, Vincent conducted a ritual, seeking to bind himself to the very soul of the mansion. He thought he could control it, harness its power. But the mansion, it seems, had other plans. The ritual went terribly wrong, and Vincent, in his obsession, did something unforgivable. That night, Whistler vanished. He was never seen again. And in his place, something else remained. A presence, a darkness, something twisted and ancient that fed off fear, off souls that dared enter. The mansion became a prison, a vessel of horrors. It consumed all who entered its doors, and no one ever returned the same. But the mansion was not done. It waited patiently through the years. It whispered, calling out to anyone foolish enough to come too close, and eventually someone did. Fast forward many decades, and a group of friends, drawn by the allure of the mansion's dark history, decided to visit. They'd heard the stories, the strange disappearances, the mysterious deaths, and the thrill of exploring an old haunted mansion was too tempting to resist. They laughed at the idea of spirits, of ghosts. After all, they were modern, rational people. They didn't believe in such things. But the mansion did not care whether they believed or not. It waited for them, just as it had waited for Vincent Whistler. They arrived late at night when the wind howled through the trees and the moon hid behind dark clouds. The mansion loomed before them, towering and imposing. Its windows were dark, lifeless, and the door creaked as if it had been waiting for them to turn the handle. At first, they marveled at the grandeur of the place. They joked and laughed, their voices echoing through the empty halls. But soon they felt it, an uncomfortable, oppressive feeling, as though the house was watching them, listening to every word they said. As they ventured deeper, the temperature dropped. Their breath became visible in the cold air. Their footsteps echoed on the wooden floors, louder than they should have been, and the silence in between was thick, almost suffocating. The house seemed to shift around them, its walls groaning with age, as though the mansion itself were alive, breathing with a strange, ancient life. The whispers started softly at first, barely audible, a murmur in the distance, but soon they grew louder, as if someone or something was calling to them. And in the dark corners they caught glimpses of shapes, shadows that seemed to move on their own, just beyond the reach of their flashlights. But it wasn't until they found the old mirror, cracked and covered in dust, that things truly began to change. The reflection that stared back at them was distorted. A figure stood behind them, tall and dark, with hollow eyes. But when they spun around, no one was there. That was when they realized they weren't alone. The house wasn't empty. The mansion, it seemed, had a presence, and it was hungry. Panic set in as the walls began to close in around them. The temperature dropped even further, and their hearts pounded in their chests. They could feel it now, something ancient, something evil that had been waiting for them. The whispers grew louder, and soon they could make out words, names, chants, prayers in languages they couldn't understand. It was as if the house itself was alive, its very walls crawling with forgotten memories, bound by the rituals Whistler had performed all those years ago. And then they saw him, Vincent Whistler, but not as they would expect. He was no longer human. He was a shadow, a wraith, something born of the mansion's cursed soul. His eyes were empty, his face a mask of despair and rage, and his voice, when it came, was cold and hollow, echoing through the house like 1,000 voices. "You shouldn't have come here," he whispered, his words like ice. "You've crossed the line. You're part of the cycle now." The group tried to run, but the house wouldn't let them. The doors were gone. The windows disappeared. The walls twisted and stretched, and the mansion itself became a labyrinth of nightmares. There was no way out. The only way was forward, deeper into the darkness. The last thing they saw, just before the mansion swallowed them whole, was Vincent Whistler's cold smile, a smile that promised eternal torment, a smile that spoke of a fate far worse than death. And then silence. The mansion is still there, sitting in the distance, waiting. If you listen closely, you can hear the faintest whispers on the wind, and if you ever find yourself near its gates, don't go inside, don't answer the call. For once you enter, you may never leave. Whistler's mansion is hungry, and it's always watching.